Good afternoon, I'm Katie Wilson and you're watching A News. Let's see your headlines. Israel's Prime Minister says decision is made for full takeover of Gaza. The Netherlands becomes the first NATO country to fund a new weapons initiative for Ukraine. Texas Democratic legislators flee the state to protest GOP redistriction plan. Israeli media is reporting that Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has announced plans to seize the entire Gaza Strip. His war cabinet is set to discuss the plan on Tuesday.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is reportedly preparing to launch a full military takeover of the Gaza Strip, with multiple Israeli outlets citing senior officials in his office. Channel 12, I-24 News, and others say the decision has already been made, and Netanyahu's war cabinet will meet on Tuesday to discuss how to proceed. The reported aim is to expand the offensive into all parts of Gaza, including areas where Hamas is believed to be holding Israeli hostages. Netanyahu, in a cabinet meeting on Monday, doubled down on his war goals.
We must continue to stand together and fight together to achieve all our war objectives: the defeat of the enemy, the release of our hostages, and the assurance that Gaza will no longer pose a threat to Israel. Later this week, I will convene the cabinet to instruct the IDF on how to achieve these three objectives, all of them without exception.
His office has not officially confirmed the plan. However, the Palestinian Foreign Ministry condemned the reported decision and urged global powers to intervene, warning of further civilian suffering. Pressure is growing both internationally and at home. Protesters gathered outside Netanyahu's office Monday, demanding an end to the war, a comprehensive hostage deal, and scrapping efforts to dismiss the Attorney General. Videos showing visibly emaciated Israeli captives have intensified public anger. Meanwhile, conditions inside Gaza continue to worsen. At least 74 Palestinians, including dozens waiting for aid, were killed in Israeli strikes on Monday, according to local medical sources. Ceasefire talks have collapsed, and Israeli jets resumed bombings near the border.
Canada conducted its first humanitarian airdrop over Gaza on Monday, delivering over £20,000 of critical aid amid nearly 2 years of Israeli military operations in the territory. The Israeli military confirmed that 6 countries participated in a coordinated effort to airdrop 120 food aid packages for Gaza residents. Canada reiterated accusations that Israeli restrictions are obstructing humanitarian relief, calling such actions a violation of international law. Last week, Ottawa announced plans to recognise Palestine at the upcoming United Nations General Assembly, intensifying diplomatic pressure on Israel. Joining us now to unpack all of this is political analyst Enrique Cacer. Thank you for being with us. Now, Netanyahu's plans to occupy the entire Gaza Strip, they go against the wishes of the army chief, who was asked to resign if he didn't cooperate. Is this a sign of internal division in the Israeli government?
Probably is a sign of an internal division in how to get the objectives in the war. Yesterday, I was talking with a very close friend of mine in Israel, in Tel Aviv, and she told me that probably the main disparity amongst the Israelis is Netanyahu, not the war. There are a very huge and very tough aiming for winning this war all along the country. Probably a majority of the country, because it's completely impossible that the whole country, the 100% of the population, is agree with this conflict. But anyway, this is a question, and we saw this several times before. This is a question that about leadership. And Netanyahu is a guy who is saying right now is with me, you are with me, or you're either with me or against me. I think that right now the situation, I believe that right now the situation in Israel is sort of I don't know how to say this, but it's like a lot of people is on their way in order to focus, in order to understand the conflict and try to get a way out. You got Naftali Bennett and Yair Lapid on one side, on one majority side, and the other majority side is Netanyahu. So it's a weakness for the government. It is a weakness for the government.
Is it just
it's a weakness in the objective of the war?
Is it just a desperate attempt from Netanyahu to cling on to power?
Netanyahu is a prime minister. Only election can take him out from the post. I think I don't see a coup in Israel. Not right now. Not even right now. Especially not right now. Because that is the weakest thing of all. If Israel suffers a coup d'état.
What do we know so far about the reaction of the White House to this?
We're watching a White House which is given steps ahead, steps back, steps ahead, steps back. And I don't think that Donald Trump is going to take into this issue with gravitas. I mean, I think that Donald Trump only get positions in an issue when he has very, very clear what is to win in that issue. And right now, I don't think that Donald Trump got a very clear understanding or a very clear view of what is to win for him in this conflict. So he's sort of forcing Netanyahu in order to reach a ceasefire, a truce, a treat, to make him sit on a negotiation table, whatever. But we are gonna watch Donald Trump. I think we're gonna watch Donald Trump taking steps forward, steps back again.
And how likely is it that this could worsen the humanitarian situation in Gaza? And what would that mean for Israel on the international stage?
So you said before, Canada is dropping aid from planes. I don't think that is the greatest idea of all, because it only it provokes. Okay, you can give the aid, and that's a very it's a very good sign and a very noble purpose from Canada. But airdropping only also provokes chaos on the land, and probably the rise of mobs in order to control the food that has been dropped, right? And for the humanitarian situation in Gaza right now, I think we're dealing with two situations. The actual one, in which even Donald Trump has said there is a famine in Gaza. And if you don't want to believe there is a famine in Gaza, the fact that Donald Trump said it is sort of a universal believing of there is a famine. I believe there is a famine in Gaza right now. But taking in consideration what Donald Trump said, right now is a universal question, a universal issue about Gaza. So Netanyahu has to deal and has to struggle as well with this announcement, with this perception about the famine in Gaza. So it's not going to be easy for him in order just considering what he wants to do. I believe that what he wants to do in Gaza is gaining position in order to negotiate the end of the conflict. But I don't see a close end of a close end of the conflict in the next days or even in the next weeks.
Always great to have you on the programme. Thank you very much for your analysis.
Thank you very much for having me.
Over to Ukraine now, and the Netherlands has become the first NATO country to fund a new US weapons initiative for Ukraine, pledging €500 million. The aid will include Patriot missiles and spare parts. The US ambassador to NATO said more countries are expected to join in the coming weeks. The scheme follows President Trump's call for European allies to finance arms shipments for the war-torn country. NATO chief Mark Rutte urged others to contribute swiftly to meet Kyiv's urgent needs.
The Dutch are just the first of many. You're going to see a series of announcements in the coming weeks. You know, when we announced this facility that allowed our NATO allies to buy U.S. equipment and provide that to Ukraine for their defense, you know, we had a lot of our allies raise their hand and line up. A lot of them are coming together in groups to pool their money and their resources together to provide these armaments and munitions. And so, you know, it's the whole purpose of NATO and what makes this alliance the strongest is this platform we have to communicate amongst allies and to really talk about these issues and come up with solutions.
The European Union is putting a pause on billions of retaliatory tariffs against the United States. The tax hikes were targeting US goods after a new trade accord was struck with President Trump last month.
The European Union will suspend 2 packages of planned countermeasures against the United States tariffs for 6 months, according to a European Commission spokesperson. The decision follows an informal meeting between US President Donald Trump and European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen in Scotland on the 27th of July. As part of the New Deal, the EU will halt tariffs worth €93 billion that were due to come into effect this week. The duties targeted a range of US goods, including steel, aluminium, cars, and agricultural products. Trump claims the agreement includes a 15% tariff on EU exports to the US, €600 billion in European investment in America, and a massive €750 billion worth of US energy sales to Europe. He had threatened 30% if a deal was not done by his 1st of August deadline. Trade between the 27-member bloc and the United States last year totaled almost $2 trillion. However, the deal has sparked criticism within Europe. Former High Representative of the European Union for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy, Josep Borrell, described it as politically damaging. He accuses the Commission of caving in to Trump's pressure and compromising the EU's strategic independence. The European Union and several European leaders had warned that if a trade deal with the US was not reached by the 1st of August, the bloc would impose retaliatory tariffs on American goods.
A new trade agreement between the United States and the European Union has stirred criticism across Europe. Many believe the EU gave up too much.
Mr. President,
The ink is barely dry on a new US-EU trade deal, and already it's sparking political ripples across Europe. Under mounting pressure from Washington, the European Commission signed a new agreement with the United States. One, critics argue, strongly favours American interests. The deal suspends planned EU tariffs and boosts European purchases of US energy and technology in a bid to avoid a full-blown trade war. But many in Europe say Commission President Ursula von der Leyen conceded too quickly, fearing retaliation from President Donald Trump. They claim the agreement is one-sided, benefiting Washington while exposing Europe's economic vulnerabilities. Germany, France and Italy, the EU's largest economies, are struggling with weak growth, high debt and, in some cases, recession. Meanwhile, the US economy remains resilient, growing at an annual rate of 3%, fueled by strong job numbers and consumer demand. Analysts say Brussels had little leverage. A prolonged trade war would have hurt Europe far more than the US, especially amid the ongoing fallout from the war in Ukraine. Facing political and economic pressure, the EU appears to have chosen a tactical retreat. The message from Washington is clear: US trade policy is shifting to serve its own strategic interests, especially as tensions with China rise. For Europe, the challenge now is to strengthen its own economic and defence posture to restore transatlantic balance. Supporters of the deal say it was the most realistic option under the circumstances, but the debate has reignited deeper concerns about Europe's reliance on the United States and whether the EU is ready to stand up for its own economic interests in an increasingly competitive world.
President Trump vowed to substantially raise tariffs on Indian exports, accusing India of buying large quantities of discounted Russian oil and reselling it for big profits, despite the massive human toll in Ukraine. He didn't specify how high new tariffs would go, which is on top of the 25% duty already imposed. Over the weekend, 2 Indian government sources said India will keep purchasing oil from Russia, despite President Trump's threats. The sources did not wish to be identified due to the sensitivity of the matter. Well, India has hit back at criticism from the United States and the European Union over its ongoing imports of Russian oil amid the Ukraine conflict. New Delhi insists these imports are essential to keep energy affordable for millions of its citizens.
In an official statement published by India's Ministry of External Affairs, New Delhi defended its continued imports of Russian oil amid growing criticism from the United States and the European Union over the ongoing war in Ukraine. The statement said India began buying Russian oil after supplies were redirected to Europe following Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022. It added that the US initially encouraged India to increase these imports to help stabilize global energy markets during a volatile period as the conflict disrupted supplies worldwide. India's foreign ministry also highlighted what it called apparent double standards in targeting New Delhi, noting that both the European Union and the United States continue significant trade with Russia despite the war. The EU's bilateral trade with Russia reached nearly 67.5 billion euros in goods alone in 2024, alongside 17.2 billion euros in services the previous year. European imports of liquefied natural gas from Russia hit a record 16.5 million tonnes last year. Washington has threatened to impose much higher tariffs on Indian goods, accusing India of buying discounted Russian oil and reselling it for profit, complicating diplomatic relations amid the ongoing conflict in Ukraine. India's total trade with Russia surged to a record $68.7 billion in the last fiscal year, reflecting expanding economic ties even as the war continues to reshape global alliances. Experts say India faces a difficult balancing act, securing reliable, affordable energy for its growing economy, while navigating mounting geopolitical pressure from the West and the global call to isolate Russia over its actions in Ukraine. New Delhi says the criticism is unjustified and that it will take all necessary measures to protect its national interests and economic security.
Texas Democrats have stalled state legislation from moving forward over the redrawing of a congressional map. Dozens of lawmakers fled the state on Monday to block a Republican-drafted congressional map, which would boost party chances in 2026. Governor Greg Abbott ordered state troopers to bring the Democrats back. Civil arrest warrants were issued, but lawmakers outside Texas are out of state jurisdiction.
That you are welcome.
Cambodia and Thailand launched talks in Malaysia on Monday after deadly clashes along their shared border last month. It's ahead of a key ministerial-level meeting on Thursday as a fragile ceasefire continues to hold, a week after the two sides both agreed to stop fighting.
Preliminary talks between Thailand and Cambodia began on Monday in Malaysia, the first direct engagement since both sides agreed to a ceasefire last week. The meeting sets the stage for a key ministerial summit on Thursday. The recent clashes, the worst in over a decade, killed at least 43 people and displaced more than 300,000. Artillery exchanges and airstrikes erupted, following a landmine blast that injured several Thai soldiers near a disputed section of the border nearly 2 weeks ago on the 23rd of July. The ceasefire, brokered with the help from Malaysia, the US and China, remains fragile. Officials are now finalising terms for a temporary defence attaché monitoring force, a precursor to a formal ASEAN peacekeeping mission.
It is now at the final stage of discussions to be agreed upon before they move on to the next meeting. We are also discussing the proposed ASEAN monitoring team, including the detailed actions we intend to undertake. Additionally, we are refining the forms of assistance we require from major powers that are also present to provide support.
Long-standing tensions over disputed border areas and ancient temples have sparked repeated flare-ups. In May, a Cambodian soldier was killed, and a July landmine blast triggered Thai airstrikes using F-16s and Gripens. The current ceasefire does not address the root causes of the conflict. Cambodia recently proposed returning to the International Court of Justice to resolve the territorial dispute, an idea firmly rejected by Thailand. While the Malaysia-hosted talks mark progress, analysts warn the ceasefire will be difficult to sustain without neutral monitors on the ground.
Very honored to meet you all today.
Negotiators convened in Geneva for a critical final push with world leaders and climate scientists. The most controversial issues include capping production, managing plastic products and chemicals of concern, along with financing to help developing countries implement the treaty.
More than 170 countries will gather on Tuesday at the United Nations in Geneva for what's widely considered a last chance round of negotiations on a global plastics treaty. Delegates will restart talks that stalled in Busan last December because the old final session produced no deal.
I want an effective treaty. I want a treaty that ends plastic pollution, including in the marine environment. That's why we're here. We're not here to not get something or to get something that's meaningless. But the reality is also, and this is where, 40 years in this business, the impacts are here and now. And we have to stop this from spiraling out of control.
Countries want binding caps on virgin plastic production, while major oil and petrochemical states like Saudi Arabia, Russia, and even the US push instead for a treaty confined to downstream issues like waste disposal, recycled design, and voluntary action. Scientists warn failing to act could raise plastic production to levels triple by 2060, with catastrophic effects on oceans, climate, and public health.
It's super important because we find plastics everywhere we look, from the deepest ocean trenches up to the Himalaya mountain. So, and also in our bodies, where we look, we find it in blood, in the human lungs, and in the placenta. Even before the babies are born, they're exposed to it. So this just highlights that we really need to get a grip on plastic pollution.
After years of mounting pressure, governments are working to finalise a groundbreaking international treaty to end plastic pollution. It's a historic opportunity, but policy alone won't save our oceans.
Iran says it has entered a new phase in its relationship with the UN nuclear watchdog, as the IAEA's Deputy Director General prepares to visit within the next 10 days. But the chairman of the National Security Committee of the Iranian Parliament said that the delegation will not be permitted physical access to any nuclear sites. Our Iran correspondent Taraz Shiralilu has more from Tehran.
Foreign Ministry spokesman Baghai told a weekly press conference that the IAEA Deputy Director General will be visiting Iran in the next 10 days, while Tehran and the UN nuclear watchdog have entered a new phase of relations. The visit follows Parliament's decision in late June on suspension of cooperation with the agency after IAEA failed to condemn the US and Israeli airstrikes against Iran's civilian nuclear facilities under its safeguards. The spokesman added that the government will redefine its ties with the agency after the upcoming visit and in compliance with the legislation. Earlier, the Beirut-based Al Mayadeen TV, quoting unnamed sources, reported that IAEA will be sending a delegation to Tehran soon to review only political aspects of Iran's cooperation with the agency, and that the delegation is not consisting of any inspectors. Tehran has said that it will lodge a complaint against the IAEA Director General Rafael Grossi for his false reports on Iran's nuclear program, which were used as a pretext for the Israeli-US attacks last June. Iran has also vowed a decisive response to the threat by the European powers to reimpose the UN nuclear sanctions in October amid growing calls in Iran in domestic political circles for withdrawal from the Non-Proliferation Treaty. In the meantime, Deputy Foreign Minister Saeed Khatibzadeh said in an interview with the Hong Kong-based Phoenix TV that Iran does not want to cease its cooperation with IAEA. According to IRNA news agency, he said the inspectors left Iran voluntarily. They were not expelled and they will return in coming months. Turaj Shiralilu, reporting for A News TV, Tehran.
China has reached a major trade milestone, dispatching its 20,000th freight train to Europe through the Middle Corridor. The train departed from Inner Mongolia loaded with 55 containers. Since its launch in 2013, traffic along the route has surged, doubling from 10,000 trains in 2022 to 20,000 today. Officials say the corridor is not only boosting economic connectivity, but also reinforcing its value as a strategic alternative in the global freight movement. Uzbekistan and Turkey have set ambitious goals to boost bilateral trade, aiming for a turnover of $5 billion. The announcement came during the 6th meeting of the Intergovernmental Commission on Trade and Economic Cooperation. To unpack this, we are joined by Professor Laszlo Vasser, Chief Advisor and Senior Research Fellow at the Hungarian Institute of International Affairs. Thank you for joining us. Now, what concrete steps are being taken by both countries to reach the $5 billion trade target?
Thank you very much for providing the floor to me. Turkey and Uzbekistan are very traditional partners, especially after the opening up of the reforms of Uzbekistan after 2016. There are remarkable steps to improve the country's economy, and Turkey, as a Turkish country and with a lot of common understandings and common businesses and culture, it is an obvious partner for the modernization and development of Uzbekistan. Not the only one, for sure, but this cooperation has a lot of potential. And regarding your questions for the concrete steps, there are some soft tools and there are some hard tools how to improve the bilateral economic connections. Among the soft tools, I can mention the diplomatic and economic agreements, which is at the political and policy level, but very much important and needed for realizing the concrete steps. In recent years, both countries have been signing multiple trade agreements, investment protection treaties, and economic cooperation protocols. And these agreements are designed to create a favorable environment for trade and business collaboration. Another tool is the Joint Economic Commission, the institution of Joint Economic Commission or Economic Commissions. Both governments have set up joint committees to focus specifically on the trade and economic collaboration. This is in intergovernmental level. Other soft tools are business forums and trade missions. Business delegations from both countries are increasingly visiting each other's countries and organizing different trade fairs, and business forums are again essential for building up the networks, which will be very good base for the economic development.
So what key
key
sectors are you expecting to be driving this goal?
Sorry, I didn't understand the first part.
What key sectors are you expecting to be driving this growth?
What key sectors? Yes, the key sectors are including. It's obvious that when it comes to Turkey and Uzbekistan, the textile and apparel industry is essential. By now, Uzbekistan is one of the largest cotton producers globally, and Turkey is a significant player in the global textile market, so the cooperation is absolutely given and natural. The textile exports, including the cotton, garments and fabrics, are expected to form a large portion of the growing trade, and with Uzbekistan likely increasing its export of raw materials and Turkey exporting value-added goods like finished textiles and garments. At the Uzbek side, the increasing of the added value would be essential for sure, not just exporting the raw materials. Another field is agriculture and food products. Turkey is a huge market and a very good market for the agriculture and food products from Uzbekistan. Including fruits, vegetables and processed foods, and Uzbekistan is a major contributor to the agricultural sector is a major contributor to the economy of the country, and Turkey's advanced food processing technologies could help Uzbekistan add more value to its exports. So there are a kind of innovative opportunity in this regard as well. And out of these, agriculture, machinery, processed foods and fertilizers can be mentioned. Another sector is the construction and infrastructure. There are huge projects in Uzbekistan, road and railway construction issues, city developments and the world infrastructure developments. And the companies from Turkey have very good potential and very good expertise in this field because they already realized such kind of projects in Azerbaijan or in Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan and so on.
So it's fair to say that this trade goal aligns with Uzbekistan's broader economic development plans?
You mean, yes. So Uzbekistan's economic development strategy is focused on diversifying the country's economy and increasing its global trade footprint. And the first step to reach this 5 billion target is the industrialization, which is meaning the modernization of Uzbekistan's manufacturing and construction sectors, and to make a shift from the basically agriculture-based economic structure to a more advanced and more added value structures of the industries and service sectors. Another important tool is the export growth, or the driver would be the export growth. One of Uzbekistan's primary economic objectives is to significantly increase its exports, especially in the high-value goods. Strengthening trade with Turkey allows Uzbekistan to tap into these markets, and not only to the Turkish markets, but also to Europe, Central Asia, and to the Middle East. So Turkey can be a good bridge as a trade house, let's say, or a regional trade hub. And the foreign direct investments are essential, and Uzbekistan made significant steps to improve the business environment for the foreign direct investments, not only in the industries and the service sectors, but also in the field of education and higher education, by the way. And another very important issue is the regional connectivity. I just should mention the middle corridor and its southern leg, which is affecting and leading via Uzbekistan.
Thank you very much for your insights and for joining us on the programme.
Thank you very much.
Turkey has secured another major boost for its energy sector, with the World Bank approving hundreds of millions in new financing. The latest deal is part of a broader push to modernise infrastructure and cut reliance on imported energy. The World Bank has approved almost $750 million in financing for Turkey's energy transmission overhaul, bringing total international support this year to around $7 billion. The funding will help the state electricity company modernise the grid and expand renewable energy capacity. The United Nations Secretary-General has called for urgent global and regional support for Afghanistan. He warns that millions continue to suffer under worsening conditions. Our Afghanistan correspondent Tamim Bahis has more from Kabul.
At the launch of the United Nations Regional Center for Sustainable Development Goals in Almaty, Kazakhstan, Secretary-General Antonio Guterres singled out Afghanistan as a priority for international cooperation. He thanked Kazakhstan for its growing support, saying nowhere is the cooperation more urgent than in our support to Afghanistan. Guterres described the challenges facing Afghans, including entrenched poverty, mass displacement, and repeated natural disasters. He said the people of Afghanistan deserve peace, stability, and a better future. He also reiterated the United Nations' demand for full respect for human rights, especially the rights of women and girls, calling for economic self-sufficiency and dignity across Afghan society. The new regional center, launched in partnership with local and international institutions, aims to support long-term development and cross-border cooperation. Kazakhstan, which maintains strong ties with Afghanistan, is expected to play a key role. So far, Afghanistan's authorities has not responded to the Secretary-General's remarks or to the center's launch. But international pressure is growing for more engagement and accountability. The United Nations says solidarity and shared responsibility will be vital for Afghanistan's recovery. This is Tamim Bahis in Kabul for A News.
Well, that's all we have for now. Thank you for watching and stay tuned to A News.